Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast. This is going to be Season 2 premiere, Episode 1. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to grab the one and only Dean Thomas. How you doing, Dean?
I'm good, man. I'm just landed in Vegas, so I'm trying to adjust to being dry and ashy.
I, I don't even know how to respond to that. Like, what is that even?
Well, you don't have to worry about it, but us brothers, man, we get ashy in the knuckles here.
Listen, I say the word sunburn. I say it, and I have one. So I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I've never experienced that before. I don't know what it's like to have the sunburn.
Oh, gosh. We got some feedback there. That was ugly. All right, let's see what's going on there. Anyway, yeah. I only laugh because that sunburn joke usually kills, and you just shot right through it. So I'm 0 for 1 already. But honestly, Dean, I really appreciate it. I mean, there's no other way to say that you're one of the OG guys when it comes to MMA. I mean, you've been fighting. I believe you started in 1998. And you're still an integral part of the fight world. So, like, you know, before we go all the way back to those years, like, how do you keep yourself motivated, and how excited are you that you're still a part of the game as much as you are right now?
Well, let's just say this. Like, I'm still a part of the game because I don't want to do anything else. Like, I don't want to work a real job. I don't want to do, like, construction or manual labor. I'm not very good at that. So I found ways to just stay involved in the game. And I think part of that is because I'm such a student to the game. And I want to stay knowledgeable on all aspects of the game. So, like, I've done everything. I've fought, I've coached, I've promoted shows, I've managed fighters, I've done it all. So, like, I have an in-depth knowledge of a lot of the game. So it enables me to, or it allows me to reinvent myself over and over again to stay relevant. So here I am.
And I love that you said, you know, you brought it down to the one thing. I don't want to get another job. Like, I love what I do. And for somebody who's been doing it as long as you have, I can't imagine the equivalent of a chef going to school for 30 years and then, oh, I got to go be a mechanic today. Like, it just doesn't work. So having to find that passion, and like you go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what it is. It's just about having passion. And, you know, just loving what you're doing and staying a student of the game. Like, I never feel like I know everything. So as a student, I always got something to learn. I'm always constantly looking for ways to make this game easier for me and the people that I work with.
Oh, absolutely. And I think part of the jiu-jitsu world, part of the MMA world is that humble aspect. That even though you've been doing it as long as you have, you even just said, I still feel like I don't know everything. And I love hearing that from someone like you, because it makes me feel better. Just because, you know, covering the sport for a decade and then wondering why, when you're watching a fight, why somebody can't get up from a position, and then starting to train jiu-jitsu and getting in that same position and going, oh, that's why. That's exactly why I can't get up. Like,
well, man, don't even get me started on jiu-jitsu. Like, I was watching combat jiu-jitsu the other day, and, like, they were doing things like, this is even in a combat jiu-jitsu arena, and they were doing things that, like, I'd never seen before. Like, these kids are doing so much with jiu-jitsu, like, it's crazy. Like, I have no idea how they're doing it. Like, these positions and, like, this boogie choke and all that stuff. I'm like, what in the world is going on? I'm very ignorant to that, so I have a lot to learn in terms of pure jiu-jitsu.
well, and I don't think it's a matter of ignorance. I think it's just a matter of that one day you're doing something and it works. And no one's ever showed you how to do it. No one's ever done it. I mean, what was it? The Antonio McKee earlier this year. Like that weird neck crank guillotine that he did. I mean, you knew when he was sitting there, he looked up and he went, "Oh, I got it." And he's like literally moved his body and knew exactly that was going to happen. So sometimes it just comes from something that works. So I love it. I think that's the best part about this sport is that football, you can learn all the rules. You'll know everything. If a rule changes, okay, the next year I got that figured out. Jiu-Jitsu is ever evolving. MMA is ever evolving. And again, hearing somebody who's been in it as long as you have still talk about like watching it and being amazed, like what does that mean to you as far as the sport and how you're involved in it?
It's just well, like you said, it's constantly evolving, and it's an art, and I'm a true artist at heart, so that's why like I'm still doing it. Like I love art. I love all types of art, whether it's performance art, coloring and painting. Like I'm just painting. So like I love art, and when I look at jiu-jitsu, I look at it as an art form. When I look at fighting, I look at it as an art form. And the more beautiful it is, the better it is to me. So, it never gets old to me for that reason, because it's just art. It'll never get old to me.
And I love the aspect because so many people have come out and say, mixed martial arts, it's not an art form, but I would 100,000% disagree with that, just because, like you said, every art form has ever evolved. Whether it's painting, photography, any of it. It's had to evolve with the times, it's had to adapt, it's had to grow. And you don't see a lot of that from other sports, whereas this is constantly something that's ever changing. You go back to 1993, the original UFCs, and you watch a UFC event that's, next weekend, you're going to see two completely different sports. But they're the same thing. They've just evolved and nobody's punching somebody in the groin. So,
well, yeah. So, at my house, I make everybody do art. So we got Play-Doh. You can make little art animals. You can make little animals out of Play-Doh. I have cups and acrylic pens where you can draw on. So like everybody does art at my house. Or on karaoke night, you got to get up and perform. So like that's just the way my house is. Me and Shorty Torres run it that way. And it's funny that you talk about what did you say about I've just lost my train of thought.
People saying it's not an art form, art having to adapt.
Oh yeah, so the old UFCs. So I came home the other day and Shorty Torres and Jillian Robertson were watching UFC 3.
Oh God.
On Fight Pass, and I was like, and they never seen it before, and they were laughing at it, and I'm like, yo, this is. I mean, it looks completely different. Like it's a different sport. The fact that they never seen it before, but it's it was like, wow.
Oh, I am losing you somehow. There's some weird feedback going on.
Yeah, I hear that myself.
Not sure what that was. It's kind of weird. Hey, live shows, guys. This is what happens.
Is this a live show?
I mean, it's gonna be.
Hey, listen, people are very forgiving.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny because, both Jose, Shorty Torres and Jillian Robertson both being UFC, on the roster or have been on the roster, for them to have not seen UFC 3, like, that's some old school stuff. Like, some of that stuff's barbaric and you're watching it, but then you watch something like UFC 6 and you see Gary Goodridge fight Paul Herrera and he puts him in the crucifix and just elbows him until I thought I watched a man die. So it was scary back then. Like, let's not lie about that.
No, it was scary. I mean, it was a lot more scary back then than it is now, probably. I mean, at least now you look at athletes and they look like they belong there. Back then, like there were guys in there that didn't belong.
No, and we'll just bring up Art Jimerson because one boxing glove.
Yeah, man had one boxing glove.
But then Tank Abbott trying to throw people out of the ring. People kicking other people's teeth out. I believe was
The
it
good old days.
Yeah. Well, when Hoist fought Gerard, he said the reason he didn't let go of that tap, like that choke, was because Gerard had bit him on the ear earlier in the fight, and he said, "I'm gonna hold it until he goes out or they pull me off of him." Like that's why it was. But you can't get away with that now. Like you can't do that.
Man, I like you, man. I like being able to talk to guys about this just randomly, and they know what I'm talking about. Nobody really gets to talk that.
So I'll give you a backstory on me to give you a reason why. So for some reason, I have some weird personality trait that if you introduce me to something and I like it, I overtake it. So I will surpass your knowledge in the subject. I will do anything I can. And it was my buddy Nick, who's been on the show before. He's one of my best friends. We met when I worked at Best Buy, and I had the first fight card I think I watched was like a WEC wreckage between Uriah Faber and Mike Brown. I think it was their second fight where both Faber's hands were broken. And I've never been a violent person, and I never really thought of the sport as something I would like. And I remember watching it going, okay, I kind of like this. That's pretty good. And I met Nick, and he was like, I'm going to show you some pride fights. So we went to his house, and we'd watch like 6 hours at a time. And we would just skip through and be like, no, that fight's whack. No, you need to watch this. No, this is a good one. And I just absorbed everything. I bought any UFC DVD I could. I did any research I could. I started learning this stuff. And it took until 2 years ago to actually get me on the mat for good. I'd always kind of fluttered with the idea, but for me, this sport is like nothing else. There's no other sport you can watch where, and I always use football because it's the easiest example. If you have a team that's up 50-0 in the fourth quarter and there's 30 seconds left, there's no way that other team's winning. But then you pull up something like Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva won, and Anderson is getting beat for 4 1/4 rounds and pulls off that triangle armbar. And you're like, okay, this is why I love this. So for me, this has been 10 years of just 11 now, 12. I've lost count, actually. I think that's a good thing. But, and it's getting to see people like you. I watched the old fights against Cal Uno and BJ Penn. And, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now. It's so cool. So, the people I've gotten to talk to over the years and really learn that, fighters have so much more to them. And I think people, even in 2021, still don't understand because there's people like the Irish guy, and we'll just say the Irish guy so, nobody's calling me out for using his name to get clicks, who have that kind of behavior. But then you have something like somebody you're very familiar with, Dustin Poirier, one of the good guys. Somebody who's out there doing things for the community and is just a genuinely good person. And I think people need to focus more on him than the bad boys and the personalities, because those aren't the real backbone of MMA. So
yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many components to the game and different personalities, different type of people. It makes this game so unique. But it also allows people to identify the athletes a little easier, because no matter what your personality type is or what your demographic is, there's somebody that fights that can represent you. There's whatever your interests are in life, there's somebody in the fight game that has that same interest. And you can live vicariously through that fight. So that makes us very unique.
That's a good point, because you're right. Because there is going to be, and like you said, the older UFCs, the people didn't look like they belonged there. There are fighters now who you'd look at them on the street and never know that they were a fighter. You know, but there's also people who, you know, a lot of the heavyweights where you're like, you know, that guy doesn't look like he's in shape, but he fights like he is. You know, Roy Nelson's a really good example of that for the longest time because people would look at Roy and go, oh, he's so out of shape. And then you watch him fight and you're like, oh my God. You know, I think you're right. It does allow a lot of people to personalize with the fighters, to kind of see something in that fighter in themselves and kind of use that to grow in any aspect of their life, even if they're never going to step inside a cage.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important for fighters to accept that responsibility to know that, you know, they are role models to people. And we're very accessible to people as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like you can just, like for you, like you found me on Twitter and was like, yo, let's do an interview. Bam, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't do that to Steph Curry.
I usually use Tom Brady, but yeah, it works.
It works. But we're very accessible and we're very easygoing. And I hope that never changes in our sport. That's one thing that I think that we, but you know what? I think it comes down from the top too. Because I hang out with Dana, and I'm not name dropping him, but Dana allows himself
name drop.
Allows himself to let people come up to him and talk to him. Like I've been with him where he's been stopped on the street and he had 10-minute conversations, random conversations with fans. I've seen him put chicken wings down to take pictures with fans, and I've never seen him turn down an opportunity to greet a fan. And that says a lot about the leadership that we have coming, and it follows through to the athletes. So that's why I think Dana expects the athletes to say, listen, when the fans come up to you, you better oblige them because I do it. And he does it.
And that's, again, you brought up the greatest point because fighters are more accessible than any other athlete. 100% hands down. Because you're right. You know, they're the ones running their Instagrams. They're the ones running their Twitters. They don't have some PR team. They don't have somebody. You know, I've reached out to people and they'll be like, no, I'm not interested. And I'm just happy they wrote back. Like, so, you know, I think that the aspect of it, and Dana gets a lot of criticism. You know, there's a lot of criticism for everything that was been going on through the pandemic with fights still going on. You know, trying to do it as safely as possible. It doesn't matter if one person tested positive or 100 people. There was always going to be somebody complaining about it. You know, being a mixed martial arts fan and seeing some of the promotions that tried to do it, the ones that succeeded, you know, Combat Night in Florida, in Jacksonville, which I know you're familiar with. You fought there quite a few times. You know, did one of the first events during the pandemic. And I remember Mitchell had told me the fire marshal showed up and saw that they were doing everything properly and was like, yeah, I'm a fan of MMA. Good job, guys. And left. So, you know, if everything was done right and the right precautions were taken, and we're seeing that a lot more so in football. You're seeing games get postponed. You're seeing, you know, players get positive. There's so much criticism that's going to go on that we're doing sports and why are we allowing this fun to happen? But for fighters, this is their livelihood. This is their life. I mean, you can't really take that away from them.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can criticize all you want, but I know for me, I was able to pay my rent because of the show kept going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to still keep going. I got tested more times than anybody else that I know. So and when I did catch COVID, I knew about it. I was able to quarantine and stay away from my family, and then keep getting tested to know that I was safe. So I think that the UFC continuing to run their shows was actually a good thing for me and everybody that was involved, because everybody that was involved still were able to get paid, still had jobs, and they stayed, and we had to get tested like 4 times a week.
Jeez.
So we knew that we were safe. And the people, so like, I do a show on ESPN radio. Those dudes didn't get tested like I got tested. So they didn't know if they had it. I knew whether I had it or not. So listen, I'm giving props to the UFC for keeping it going.
So I gotta ask, how was the nose swab? Was that every time the nose swab up, all the way up?
No, I don't. I do the throat, and that's terrible. The only time I do the nose swab is the UFC sends a kit home. They just send a kit to your house, and you test yourself over Zoom.
Oh my gosh!
And you do that in the nose. Yeah. So before I can even come here, I had to pass that test.
Wow. And you don't see them talk about these precautions. They talked about how safe everything was, but that's the first time I heard something like that. Like you said, you guys are getting tested a lot during the week, and the fact that you even had it, had to do the quarantine, was that a weird feeling for you, after being tested, and then it comes up positive? Were you like, oh, shit? Or was it like, well, I know what I need to do, and I'll go quarantine?
Well, when I tested positive in July, they were still working things out, and we didn't do the take-home test at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if they were doing a take-home test at that time, I probably would have tested positive at home and wouldn't have had to come all the way out here.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I did come out here in July, I tested positive and had to stay here for 2 weeks.
So you had to stay in Vegas for 2 weeks and not be able to do anything.
Yeah, in the hotel room. It looked, and so like this brings back. I'm in the exact same hotel and setup that I was when I was quarantined. So it's like deja vu right now for me.
Well, I'm sorry you're having to go through this again.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's like, oh my god.
You're like, I'm back. Well, and right now, like you said, you're in Vegas. Having to quarantine before, going out. So, is that been a weird thing to adapt to? Because before it was like, if there was a fight in Vegas, a fight in California, a fight in, New York. I say New York as if that's happened a lot. But, is it weird to have that new kind of structure of how things work for you to be able to attend a fight?
No, I love it. I think it's so much easier and so much better now. A lot less distraction. I know it's terrible that I have fans and all that stuff, but the fact that like we come here, we're isolated. I can focus on my fighter, and now we're not taking like the big buses. Now it's like everything is private. It's actually great. Like I got picked up from the airport today and took a limo by myself. I mean, it was beautiful.
Finding the beauty in a pandemic. If you write a book, that's going to be the name of your book. So just remember me when you write that.
And when we leave to Abu Dhabi, we charter the jet, so it's only UFC people on there. It's awesome.
So what's it like in Abu Dhabi? As you've been there quite a few times during all this, what's it like being over there, especially during everything that's going on? Like, what's the atmosphere like for you? I know you said you already like how things are with less distractions, but, what's it like now being able to go over there as much as you have?
Well, now it's a little bit different. When we went last year, when it was open, it was like the best time I've ever had. My entire life. It was so fun. But now we're stuck in a bubble. So being in that bubble, it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the area is still beautiful, still nice, but you're just limited to your activity. You don't do much. And this time they even tightened it up even further to where I don't think we can even leave the hotel. So before we had access to different hotels, but I don't think we can even leave the hotel now. So it's going to be interesting to see how it is when I get there.
So on a normal trip then, how long are you over in Abu Dhabi? Like, do you have to, you stay there for the fights, and then do you have to stay there for a couple weeks? Do you have to come back to Vegas and quarantine for 2 weeks and then go home? Like, what's the process been? And I hate that we're talking about COVID, but it's relevant here.
No, that's okay. It's very, very relevant. But every time I've been, it's for a different. It's been a different experience. Because, and this time is going to be different too because I'm not going for a fight. I'm only going. We're shooting an episode looking for a fight, and then I'm shooting an episode for the Dean Diaries.
Big difference.
Yeah. So I'm only going as a personality. But in terms of coming back, there's no quarantine when we come back. So like, as soon as we come back, we're good to go.
Well, that's good. So like you said, and I was wondering, I was like, what fight are you going over for? But you're actually shooting, those things. And I think it's awesome, again, having still that close of a tie to the organization. You see so many people, once they're done being fighters, if they're coaches, they don't really tie in. But, one of these days I'd like to go to Abu Dhabi. I'd love to go to ADCC. But, when it gets back to it and really get to experience that. But it really sounds like, each trip is an experience, which I like to hear. It's not the same old, same old. It doesn't get repetitive because, like you said, the world's ever changing. Everything, the safety precautions, everything. Now you guys being stuck in the hotel. So, sorry you're having to be stuck in a hotel in Abu Dhabi, of all places.
Yeah, well, when we get to Abu Dhabi, we'll have to quarantine for 2 days. And then we're stuck in the hotel. So we're quarantined in our rooms for 2 days. And then we're stuck in a hotel for the duration of time.
Holy cow.
But I think for me, it won't be that bad because I'll have access to a little more because I'm filming content.
Mm-hmm.
But, as soon as I start, so I live like this Cinderella life. So when I'm like with Dana, I'm like Cinderella, but I'm not. Like my carriage turns into a pumpkin.
So what you're saying is Dana White is your fairy godmother.
Yeah.
That may be the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, ever. That's fantastic. Oh, man. Compose myself. So, going back to it, one of the things that popped up more recently for you, like you said, being a personality or being, the talent or being something other than a fighter, you had that bike-a-thon. I'm just going to call it a bike-a-thon instead of a marathon across Florida. And I'm really upset that I missed you because I live 15 minutes from Clearwater. So that would have been cool to kind of meet up and see.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, obviously mental health is a huge aspect that is overlooked in MMA because you have all the lingering effects that can happen, the CTE, the depression that comes from it. So talk about why it was important for you, when you found Heads Up Guys, and why you ended up doing this to really support and raise awareness.
It's like, first off, like for anybody who gets into a cage and tries to beat the brains out of another person for the entertainment of other people, there's already something going on inside there, right? Like if you find enjoyment in like punching somebody in the head, there's something going on. So like, and I recognize that. But then now you take into an account where you're having a career where you're trying to be successful, you're trying to make money, and you're winning and losing. And you compound that with the already that you're a little loose upstairs. And then when then let's say your career's over, now you're really lost because like it just there's so many mental effects that goes on with fighters from their career, the duration of the career, the after effects of the career, and fighters need help. Like they just don't know. I mean, look at it. Like look at Edwin Rivera. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Where he's
my brain went.
That's a brain health issue. And then again, you compound it with the fact that you're taking punishment. You're getting punched in the head. So, like, for me, I feel like it's an important issue that needs to be addressed. The fighters need to be able to come out and talk to somebody about this and to be able to deal with their issues and situations and not just try to tough it out because, like, as fighters, everything that we do is to tough it out.
Yeah.
Fight it. You're tough. Be a man. That's what we've been taught to do since we started training. You got a problem? Violence is the answer.
That's what you've been taught since you were born. You're a man. You've got to don't cry. Like, get it together.
You know, get it together. And then like I said, as a fighter, something troubling you, fight it. Fight it. Fight it. Violence is the answer. So, but we know that that's not true, and that's an unhealthy way to look at life. So I did this ride in support to try to open up a conversation about this. So I will be doing more of them. I had a great time on that ride. So I was just talking to my riding partner today. I was like, man, I miss it. Like I miss riding. So I'm not sure what our next ride is going to be, but I definitely want to do one soon.
Well, and how far did you end up going? And, you know, what was the end result? You know, obviously I saw, you know, you've talked to other people about this. This isn't the first time you've brought it up, but I'm truly interested in it. You know, having a psych background and actually a degree in it, the mental aspect of fighting has always fascinated me. And, you know, there's a lot of developments coming around. I know, you know, Ian McCall talks about it a lot. And, you know, I've known Ian for better part of a decade at this point, and I've seen the advancements and the things he's trying to do to help fighters, because you're right. No fighter wants to say, I'm messed up in the head, because that takes away, you know, their livelihood, that takes away something they love, you know, and the fighters just don't know when to quit. And it's sad to say that they don't know when to quit, but no one can tell you when to stop fighting. You can have coaches, family, everything to say, hey, you need to stop. If it's still in them, you can't change their mind. So, you know, talk about how far did you go? I mean, I know you went from coast to coast, but what was it like the entire time? And, you know, were there any point where you were too tired or you said, hey, man, this was a bad idea? And what pushed you through it? I already know the answer to that.
It was very, we started in Titusville.
Okay.
And we went all the way to Clearwater. And it was challenging because there's different, you know, Florida's different environments. So, and the wind blows in different directions too.
Yeah, it does.
And when I got on the West Coast through Pasco County, it's the Suncoast Trail we were on.
Yeah, so I grew up in Pasco, so I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah. That was the absolute worst part of the ride.
Sounds about right.
The wind was going against. It was about a 40-mile stretch where the wind was going against us. Direct sun. It was just awful. I did see an alligator though. We did see an alligator on the lake.
Was it in the road or on the trail?
No, it was on the trail. It was like just like off the trail in a ditch off the trail. But other than that, like, I mean, it was such a cool thing, like going through towns like Winter Haven and Claremont. I mean, it was really cool to see Florida from that aspect, like going through these towns and try not to get lost. But we got lost a couple times, but like that was the fun of it. I mean, it was kind of fun to get lost, like just to be like, I don't know if this is the right way, but let's just take it and see where we end up.
Well, in today's technology
So,
world, it's harder to get lost. So it was kind of like freeing.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it was free. I mean, we weren't lost in the sense it was like, oh no, somebody called the cops, but it was like an exploration.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was really cool, really fun. The next ride I wanted to go from Miami to Jacksonville.
Woo-hoo. Whoa, that would be a
Yeah,
ride.
that's gonna take me that's gonna take me a couple days, but I want to do that. But I want to make sure that it's gonna be a cool road. I want to make sure that the ride is nice.
Well, you and I both know, living in Florida, one day it's 39 degrees, the next day it's 50, the next day it's 80. So it's harder to predict something like that, and you're going to be riding up that whole coast. Definitely would be.
And that's a little dangerous too, and that scares me a little bit because you know how people in Florida drive, they people like crazy.
Yeah. I'll talk to you about that more. I know about that way too well for what I do for a living. So, yeah, I know how people drive, and you can infer from that what you need. I'd love to see that drive, though. And then, as far as, like, I feel like this is kind of a given, but what did you do for sleeping arrangements? You know, you're doing this 2 days. You know, did you guys take turns, take little, like, power naps? Like, what was the goal? Or did, you know, a hotel come into mind? Or really?
Yeah, we went to a hotel the first night. Yeah, so we rode for 11 hours the first day.
Jeez. That's insane.
Yeah, and then we stayed in a hotel. Then got up in the morning and then finished the ride. And it took us 10 hours the next day.
So across the state in less than 24 hours riding. That's incredible. Like.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the thing is, like, if you could go straight, like straight across, I could do that in a day.
Yeah, that'd be easy.
In one ride, you could do that in one ride. But you know, going on the trails and getting lost, I mean, it was a lot harder because I mean, it was 200 and something miles. And you know, again, just getting lost and not knowing where you're going. But again, that was the fun of it. That was the joy. That was the joy in it. So I'm not complaining about that.
No, and I don't see it as a complaint at all because you're still smiling about it. You're still like, I could see how enthused you are about what you accomplished, and the fact that you're planning one, you know, that would probably be, I don't know if longer at that point, if it's, you know, almost a straight shot up the coast.
Oh yeah.
But my math is really bad at night, so. But I know the distance and I know how far away that is. So that's, you know, it'd be really cool to see that. And the fact that you're not just doing this to say, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing. You know, you're raising awareness, and it's obviously worked.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, we raised $12,000.
Jeez.
Like my goal was $1,000. Like I just if I get $1,000 from doing this to give to Heads Up guys, I'm good. $12,000, man. So like, I'm pretty proud of it.
And I mean, that's incredible too, because again, you were like $1,000, anything helps. So you have $12,000, and you're able to support this group, you know, who's trying to help. It's not just fighters that they're trying to help. They're trying to help everybody who's dealing with any sort of depression, anything else. This isn't just, you know, focused on what you are. And I think that separates, again, the fighters and the people in the MMA realm, the MMA world, whichever you want to call it, is that you're not just focused on what's going to make you better and those around you better in your, you know, gym or, you know, in your family. It's everybody. So thank you for doing that, because honestly, it's amazing.
Well, you very well. On behalf of myself, my riding partner, Heads Up guys.
Yeah, so Heads Up guys. Dean Thomas, he's the man. I never know which way to point. You think I've been doing this long enough that I'd point the right direction? Never works. Never works. Like, so I want to go down memory lane with you, and I want you to go back and tell me what you remember about the first time you took a fight. So I know we're going back 22 years, but I know the first fight has to be one of the ones that sticks out to you. October 98.
So, I mean, you mean October 98? Was that Tampa Valley Tudo?
Almost. That was.
Or was that Jacksonville? Was that Jacksonville?
That was Jacksonville Valley Tudo. Oh, damn! See?
Yeah. Thomas Velasquez.
Oh my god! Bravo. If you cheated, I'll never know, but I don't think you did. Your brain just literally went, boop. That's it.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, that was Jacksonville Valley Tudo. December was Tampa Valley Tudo.
Yeah.
Or November, something like that. Yeah.
December, yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, Thomas Velasquez. I remember fighting him, and my brothers were there, and they had never seen me fight because I had an amateur career prior.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing amateur shoot fighting down in Miami. And,
I'm not surprised by that at all.
But they had never seen me fight. So by the time I got to Jacksonville, I wasn't nervous. I felt like a superstar. I was like, I can't believe I'm about to go do this. This is real now. And I remember being so excited, and brothers were there watching. And I was just like, man, I'm about to bust this dude up. And I did.
Well, and if you really...
But ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because I didn't start getting nervous for fights until people told me I was supposed to be nervous for fights.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're in the UFC. It's the biggest fight of your career. Oh, you're fighting in Japan. It's the biggest fight of your career.
Well,
prior to that, when I was fighting, man, bring it.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it, though, because if you look at the first 4 fights of your career, they happen in 2 months, October and December. You have 4 fights.
Yeah.
And, you fought the same guy twice at 2 different events, and then you run into Cal Uno. But you fought in Japan. 4 fights into a professional career, 5 fights in. Like you said, that had to be on your head where you're like, oh, this is the biggest fight of your career, and you just went, damn it. I was liking this ignorance part of it.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is so good before until y'all ruined it with you ruined it by telling me how important it was to me. It was just fun.
Well, and that's the thing is that, back then fights were a lot harder. You were fighting all over the place. All different organizations, different, just everything. Fighting all over the world. And then they
weren't even sanctioned back then.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. There's a lot of guys, and I know the one that comes to mind is a fight I'm never gonna forget. It's Mike Pyle versus Rampage. It was one of Mike Pyle's first fights, and he's like, it's one of the first sanctioned fights. And he was like, Rampage outweighed him by a metric ton, a lot of weight. And they were like, just do the fight, whatever. So back then it wasn't as regulated, but then again, you get to the UFC, you've got 13 fights under your belt at that point. And you go up against BJ Penn, who nobody knew that BJ would be the person he is. Nobody. They saw the fight, his fight with Cal that went to the draw and everyone went, nobody really saw that potential there. So what was it like to fight BJ back then, knowing what you know now? Not knowing what you knew then, because back then he was just another guy.
Yeah, back then he was just another guy. I remember he was the first American to win the Mundials. So I was preparing for a jiu-jitsu guy. But actually, I was a bit disappointed. Well, because I was actually supposed to fight Genki Sudo.
Oh, that would have been good.
And Genki got hurt. So then they brought... Yeah. And, like, I started... Yeah. And the rest was history. I got knocked out by a jiu-jitsu guy.
Well, and at that point, BJ was, like, had 2 professional fights. I think 1 professional fight before he fought you. Yeah. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, 1 professional fight against Joey Gilbert.
Do you remember that from memory?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Like, I cheat sometimes.
Yeah,
but
my brain, like, I can remember the old stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and that's for me, like, the old stuff was what got me, you know. I think the first live pay-per-view I watched, the first live one, don't judge me here, was UFC 102. So, Couture and Nogueira. That was the first live one I had watched, like, on a pay-per-view. But at that point, I had already watched all the Pride, all the older ones, and I remember watching, like, I know I'm going to say this wrong. I want to say it's UFC 48 with Frank Mir and Tim Sylvia. And Frank Mir breaks his arm.
Yeah.
And when you watch that on the UFC, like if you watch that on Fight Pass right now, you do not hear what actually happened in that fight, which is the craziest thing to me because on the DVD they hadn't edited it out. So when he breaks the arm, the crowd starts booing when Herb Dean stops the fight. The crowd is booing like excessively because they have no idea what happened.
Did his arm is broke?
And then the replay goes, and you just hear a, oh. Just this sound of, like, when you watch it break. But if you watch it now on Fight Pass, you don't hear the boos. That went away.
Yeah.
And I think that
out.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Listen, I've been to my share of live fights. People yell some dumb stuff at you guys. Like, people have yelled some really dumb stuff. And I think, you know, going into how the MMA landscape is now without people in the crowd, you're not hearing somebody do the Ric Flair woo, which we all know and love. Sorry, that was hard to say. During a fight, that is not... I don't want to hear that.
I was about to say, I was like, I know.
Yeah. That was my pretend throw up. I love Ric Flair, but that doesn't belong in a fight. Not at all. Not at all. But really, it's changed the game. It's changed a lot of the fighters that I've talked to have said, you know, I like it. I hate it. You know, for you, going back into, you know, when you started, what was it like for those bigger crowds? Like, was that something that energized you, or was it something that made you more nervous, or was it really just somebody saying, hey, this is the biggest fight of your career, don't mess it up?
I think it would make me nervous at first. But then when I saw them and I got out there, it turned me up. Like, I was like, I'm on now. Turn into a showman. I'm on. You got me. But prior to it, I'd be like, oh my God, there are people out there. Oh no. But then when I got out there, I was like, this is me.
Like, let's go.
Yeah. I did. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
And you kind of have to, because you'll talk to fighters who will say they don't hear anything when they're inside there. You know, all they can hear is their coaches. All they can hear is the other guy's, like, footsteps or him throwing punches. And then you have people, like you said, who feed off of that. You know, and there's those times where you'll see it in a fighter. You know, and we'll use other sports as an example. When a team starts to lose, you can feel it in the crowd. Mm-hmm. And they'll try to pick up off that energy. And nowhere does it work better than a fighter. Fighter's starting to lose, and he goes, all right, the crowd's not behind me anymore. The crowd's egging me on. The crowd's trying to tell me to go, go, go. Like, I got to do something. And we've seen some of the most spectacular knockouts. You know, when it comes to that, where guys were hurt, and you see, I'm going to use Scott Smith and Pete Sell. I know that one's older, but I like it. He was hurt. He was hurt badly.
Absolutely hurt.
And he's holding his side and throws that punch. Falls down immediately. Falls down immediately in pain. And you have to think, like, in that moment, he fed off everything that was, anything he had left to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Beneil Dariush's one of his last fights. Like, coming back from being rocked, and then being able to do that. That stuff's amazing. And it doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah. I think that Conor is a fighter like that who feeds off the crowd, which is probably why they're having some fan attendance in this series, the Fight Island.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
think Conor was like, y'all want me to fight? You better have some fans.
Oh no, you said his name. Oh no. Well, it's not a surprise, but I'm taking Dustin in that fight 100%. 10 times out of 10. And
yeah, I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, and I think you look at Dustin. Dustin's 11-2, I think, in 1 since they last fought. Conor's 6-2. You've had Conor fighting at 45, 55, 70. But Dustin has just looked amazing since he left featherweight. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know you worked with him for
a lot better. He's a lot better at heavy.
Yeah. Well, and I think for Dustin at that point, he was still really young when that fight happened. And I don't mean to say age-wise, but it was the fight game itself. I don't think he truly believed in himself as much as he does now.
Not only that, but you also got to remember that prior to the fight, a lot of fighters respect Conor.
Yeah.
So he caught Dustin when Dustin didn't respect him. You know, now it's going to be a different fight. I don't know who's going to win, but...
Oh, looks like we lost Dean. Hold on, guys. And he's back.
I'm back.
That's what the pause button's for.
So you got to imagine that Dustin respects a little bit more now, and everybody knows he's capable of. He's felt it.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how hard he is. He knows how accurate he is. So he can game plan a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the first time everybody thought that Conor was just, you know, all talk. But now we know differently.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's a respect aspect. You know, Dustin would have to be very dumb not to go in there with a sense of respect. And I know he's going in there with that. He's a smart fighter. He picks his shots, and the way he has been fighting recently has just been nearly flawless, you know, with the exception of the Khabib fight. Like, he's going in there and just taking over. And I feel like putting that kind of pressure, mixing in the takedowns, the jiu-jitsu, everything he's got going, I don't think Conor's really going to be prepared for it, and I think Conor's going to go in the same aspect like Lou Rockhold did when he fought Bisping the second time. You know, yeah, I beat you. I know I could beat you. You got nothing for me. And I think that's going to be the downfall here. That and just Dustin executing a game plan. So, didn't mean to bring all that up, but it works. So, in that same regard, you know, you were with ATT for quite some time. And you had that, you know, that split with them last year. I'm just calling it a split because I know you've talked about it. You've brought it up. So since that has happened, like, what has, you know, your atmosphere in the gym life been, you know, not being a part of that team anymore?
Well, I train at home now, so that's, I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that. It's pick up, walk in the garage, and train people.
Mm-hmm.
And I train a small number of people So I don't have this big responsibility of working with, just a group of guys. Like I didn't want that. I wanted to consolidate my life, and I think I've done that. And but now I also have freedom to train with other people. Like I'm playing in a couple trips. I'm going back to Wonder Boys in a couple of weeks. I'm going to go visit Lloyd Irvin in a couple of weeks.
Ooh.
So it's cool to be able to have these relationships with everybody and go, because I've been in the game for I know everybody, but I never had the opportunity to work with everybody because I was so attached to the top 10. But now I feel like I have some freedom to be able to share information with anybody, and I have that luxury now. I'm going to utilize it.
I gotta say, I love that. I love all the guys over at ATT. I love, all over the world, anybody. But for you to be able to do that, and you didn't do it because of some open politics, dispute or this or that, but at the end of the day, you wanted to be able to share your knowledge with anybody.
Yeah.
Being able to pick and choose, because you have so many fighters who will cross-train, they'll train together, they end up having to fight, and it becomes this big, awkward, show where it's like, oh, you can't have this coach, or I'm not going to coach you, or this or that. Being able to, like you said, select the people that you train, the smaller group, you feel like you probably get more of a one-on-one. They get more out of it. You're not teaching a whole class, and, maybe, not to say you weren't, but maybe you weren't putting 100% of yourself in there because that wasn't what you wanted.
I'm telling you right now.
I didn't want to call you out, but...
No, I'm telling you right now, I wasn't. But I am now.
So, in that respect, you mentioned Jose Shorty Torres, Jillian Robertson. My bad. Sci-fi. It happens.
Okay.
So, talk about some of the people you've been training with and what differences you've been able to implement now that it's just you. You're not following a curriculum. You're not following anybody else's ways, really, other than your own.
So I work with Shorty, Jillian, a kid named David Evans, Greg Hardy, and Keith Speed. And they're all young guys. So, like, we're building chemistry and a relationship with each other where we're learning about each other. It's easier for me to coach people and learn about people because this game comes down to so many small, I hate to use the word small, so I'll omit that, but this game comes down to detail. And it's very personalized. And you can't train a fighter like a fighter model because everybody's different. So now I can look at my fighters and go, Shorty trains better when he does this, he does that. Jillian trains better when she does this, she does that. So I have to change it. Like right now, I don't even have them training together. Because it's like, I realize that like they're so different, they need different things. That I don't even train them together no more. I train them separately. So, and I think that it's going to, when it's all said and done, they're going to be better fighters because of it.
And I think that takes that years of experience, both being in the cage, being outside the cage. Like you said, promoting fights, managing fighters, being in the cage, training. Like, sometimes you got to know, like, this person and this person don't work well together. Or it's not good for them, it's not working for them. And it's nothing personal. But like you said, sometimes it's just the atmosphere and what you have to create for that fighter for them to really reach their potential.
Yeah, and it's different from atmosphere because in a team atmosphere, you cast a big net and you say, all right, here's a room, let's throw 100 guys in, and the cream is going to top. And that's just the way it is. But with me, it's like, all right, I'm taking my people that I enjoy working with, and I'm just going to make them better. I'm going to see if we can reach their potential. So, if you Jillian in that room with Tati, she's not going to excel like she with private attention.
And I love that aspect and the subtle Macho Man reference. That's all I could hear when you said that. If you couldn't tell, I grew up watching wrestling, so that it's in there. It's in there. But I watched the old school stuff. You watch some of the newer stuff, and it's just terrible. But I love the approach because, like you said, you're gonna cast a net. You're gonna say, all right, these few people, they're the stars. We're gonna focus on them. Everybody else, maybe not so much. And it's not it's not personal, but you're a business you have to run, and you have to see who you see has the potential, whereas you already know who has the potential, or you can see it. And you see it in these people, Keith Speed, like you said, Jillian and Jose, and I think David was the other one.
David Evans.
Like, these are people that I really hope understand how much it means for you to take that time, take that time away and say, I'm training you because I see something. I see, what I like to work with and what I can do to make you better. So I really hope they can appreciate that, no matter how high they get.
Me too.
I'm sure they'll watch this and be like, we do.
Life is easier for me. Like, it's easier for me to go to just show up at top, get a paycheck every week, and just bark out orders and just say, all right, you train with you train with you train with you. Like, it's easier for me to do. But for me, like, there's no integrity for me. And like I said, I'm an artist. I want to paint the picture. And I don't care if anybody else in the world sees it, but that picture has significance to me. So my integrity will not allow me to just take my art and what I know in the game of mixed martial arts and just throw it out there in a big net and just say, all right, if you're, you guys do what you want with it. No, I don't know, man. It may be a character flaw. I had to have a lot more integrity in my information and my passion to the game to just throw it away like that.
And I have to respect that in the sense that let's compare it to art. Take an artist. An artist doesn't want to paint 100 pictures and hope that one of them is good.
Right.
An artist wants to take his time, paint a good picture, have everyone tell him it's garbage. And then he goes, but I like it. I put a lot into this. Look at Van Gogh, Picasso. If Picasso was at any other time, never would have made it. Never would have made it. Van Gogh, we all know, cut his ear off. Sounds crazy, but the man was devoted to his work. And you look at some of his other stuff, like anybody who's listening who has any interest in art, look at something other than Starry Night from Van Gogh. You see that it has an element in almost everything else he does. As a photographer, this guy, you don't want to take 10,000 pictures and hope that you have a few good ones. You want to take the time to make sure what you've captured, number one, isn't a carbon copy. You can't find that same picture with somebody else because that happens all the time with weddings and everything else. Oh, stand here, do this. You want to make it different. You want it to stand out, and you also want every picture to have a piece of you in it. And I feel like that's what you're doing with these people that you're training. Before you weren't really... You can't give 1% to 100 people. It's not going to work.
No.
Giving 50% to a group of people, still not going to work. But like you said, they live there. You're on top of everything they could do. Like, they can't just be like, hey, coach, I'm sick. Can't come to training. Like...
Well, if it ever got to that point, then I would say we no longer have that chemistry because we are indebted to each other. You know, like I'm putting a lot of my time into them, so I expect them to put their time into them.
And that's the mutual respect thing. But at the end of the day, you're not doing this for you. You're doing it for them.
No, I'm not.
You get something out of it.
And there's easier ways for me to make money.
Yeah, like flying to Abu Dhabi and filming some shows.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to rob these kids or look for money. I'm doing it because like I want to see them win, and I don't need to be in the camera and all that stuff. For me, it's the puzzle, it's the art. Like I love creating that art.
Well, and I'm gonna say here, and anybody else steals our idea. So the next time we're able to, I'm gonna bring a blank canvas. We're gonna bring 2. We're gonna get together. We're gonna paint something live on the show.
Let's do it.
And we're gonna make some art because, like you said, doesn't matter if we're good. I don't know how to paint, so this will work out just great for me. You've got a decided advantage that everybody does some art, so I love that. You know, bringing 2 elements that to anyone else don't make any sense. How does somebody compare painting to mixed martial arts? How do you compare this to that when they're really one and the same? It's an art form. It's something you have to learn, you have to grow, and you have to be humble because you can't give up. And, you know, it's kind of like doing jiu-jitsu. You have people who go to blue belt, and the odds of going past blue belt are pretty slim. Like, the percentage is very high for people who quit because they go, that was their only goal. That was the only thing they wanted. I'm going for purple in 2023, 2024. I just got my blue belt last year. So I'm like, I've got goals. Like, that's where I'm going. And just like an artist, no artist paints one picture, goes, oh, I was successful, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's not going to work that way.
Well, so, and you talk about making these comparisons, like I study acting, and as an actor, it's like fighting. You don't just show up and be an actor. Like, you have to prepare for it. So, like, I study and train to be an actor. But I take a lot of the same themes as an actor and use it for martial arts. Because it's really all the same. It's just learning a skill and developing a skill. So it's really all the same. But I think that gives me a unique advantage over other coaches because I'm still involved in learning how to do something. So like, you know, some coaches, they just throw a towel on the shoulder and they out and can yell. For me, like, I'm still learning things. So it's easy for me to relate to the fighters because we're in the same situation.
Absolutely. And on the last episode we talked to Sherman Augustus. I don't know if you ever watched Into the Badlands. If you haven't, amazing show. He's going to be on season 4 of Stranger Things. But, you know, he's a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. And he talked about the acting and how much it helps, you know, and how much the Taekwondo helped him in acting, which I never thought those would be two things that would kind of mesh together. But he talked about being at the gas station, and he said, I'm walking, and I tripped. And he goes, and I immediately did a forward roll, landed on my feet, and kept walking like nothing ever happened. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. Like, that's not normal. But it's it's things that you never know will come into effect. So I love that yours is the exact opposite way. You know, train to be an actor, and some of those things can help you shape the people you're around, just like an actor would do in a scene, just like, you know, person would do in everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, snap. Hey, Matt, listen, I hate to cut this short.
No, I was about to do it.
Oh, really? I call my kid in a minute.
All right, so what we'll do real quick is I just want to thank you, Dean. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. On behalf of Combat Press, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast, Epic Jits Tees, making my logo, and then, of course, my supporting small business. You might even know Fat Boy Jiu Jitsu. That's over in the Orlando area.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So is Bertsos Bakeshop. So she's an amazing baker. So if you ever want to treat yourself, it's a place to go. And then
Where's that
she's in Orlando. So I mean, it's not too far.
I love Orlando. I love Orlando and I love bakery.
Yeah, trust me when I say this. Deep, like the chocolate covered Oreos. I know you've probably had them 100 times. Trust me. You will never have a chocolate covered Oreo like this. I promise you. And if I'm wrong, I will pay for them.
Don't say that because I'm gonna tell you wrong. Even if you're right.
Well, Dean, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll definitely have to do this again soon.
For sure, man. Just let me know. All right.
Thanks, brother.
Peace, man. Take it easy.